past few years, we've made a number of videos on this channel covering the progress being made in semi-autonomous vehicles, how automakers have introduced SAE Level 2 systems combining lane keep assist with radar-guided cruise control and wrap them in marketing names designed to make each one feel distinct from everyone else's. The truth is, they're not that different under the hood. Most semi-autonomous systems on the road today work from a very similar playbook, a suite of onboard sensors, some combination of GPS and camera-based vision systems, basic object detection and avoidance, and if you're at the most sophisticated end of the market, a dedicated processing system running predictive algorithms that make informed, real-time guesses about what's likely to happen next on the road around you. I spend a lot of time behind the wheel of new vehicles, obviously mostly from an EV perspective, but what strikes me every time is how similar these systems feel in practice, regardless of the badge on the steering wheel. Blue Cruise, Pro Pilot, Dream Drive, Tesla Autopilot or Full Self-Driving, the names are different, but they all basically serve to do one thing: keep you safer on the roads and reduce the likelihood that you will, in a fatigued and distracted state, make some kind of error that you can't fix by hitting Ctrl-Z. In the last few years, we've been beset by a sea of videos and reports showing people acting badly behind the wheel of a vehicle operating in some kind of semi-autonomous mode. People complaining on forums that their vehicles suddenly accelerated without their say-so because they'd forgotten to turn their semi-autonomous system off. People letting their car smash into the back of another vehicle at full speed because the car either didn't see the hazard ahead or misinterpreted what it was seeing. And that, sadly, includes motorcyclists, whose smaller profile continues to confound these systems, particularly at night or in poor visibility, with consequences that are nearly always fatal. And that's before we even delve into the horror stories from further afield. A Neo ES8 in China, operating in Navigate on Pilot mode, ploughing into a stationary highway maintenance vehicle, killing the driver. A Xiaomi SU7 carrying 3 university students to a civil service exam caught fire after colliding with a highway barrier. The system saw the obstacle, issued a warning, handed back control, and the students never made it. These aren't edge cases. Proponents of semi- and fully autonomous vehicles state that our future will be a better one, that the rise of robotaxis, whoever is operating them, will make the world more equitable for all, replacing bus routes with on-demand, door-to-door services, that those for whom mobility has been a historical challenge, the elderly, those with mobility challenges and the visually impaired, can benefit from. We are told that many of these incidents are simply a fact of the inevitable teething problems of this new technology, that they will be fixed iteratively as the dawn of artificial intelligence allows models to be trained, developed and evaluated in a metaphorical blink of an eye, rather than the centuries it took generations of stonemasons in medieval Europe to build a single cathedral. We are told, like Joe Bishop of Expeditionary Force, that we should trust the awesomeness of a shiny metallic beer can, that it will all work out in the wash. And as fans of X-Force will know, a shiny metal can going, "Heh Joe, we may have a bit of a problem here," does not make for a good evening in the mess hall with Fluffernutter sandwiches. Yet, real-world lived experiences are teaching us other things. BMW and Mercedes-Benz both recently announced an end to their own Level 3 and beyond driver assistance technology as they focus instead on Level 2 tech. Every automaker or startup that's worked on fully autonomous Level 4 and above vehicles have struggled to bring those vehicles to market without a bevy of embarrassing issues. The Waymo robotaxis in Austin, Texas, caught on camera passing stopped school buses with children still crossing the road, not once, not twice, but more than 20 times, even after Waymo said they'd fixed it. The Tesla robotaxis, followed around by a chase vehicle containing a safety driver, and the wind down and reabsorption of entire autonomous subsidiaries into their parent automaker companies, like the elimination of crews and a rehiring of some of its engineers into the driver assistance programs at GM. Basically, as I suspect you already know, and plenty of people have proven, fully autonomous vehicles are hard to make, and right now, almost impossible to put on the road in any large numbers. The first 98% of learning to drive is easy. That's the learning the rules of the road, learning how to control the vehicle, and what all of the signs mean. The last 2% is split between experience and the kind of value judgment decision-making that most computer algorithms can't do yet. And before we get to the panacea of what we're led to believe will be a world where we never have to drive anywhere, where Johnny cabs crisscross the streets with no issue, and where the driving exam will cease to become a touchstone rite of passage event, we have this. And yeah, I would be worried about taking a Johnny cab too.
Where the bloody hell are we?
You're in a Johnny cab.
Right now, semi-autonomous operation is sold as a high-end add-on for most modern vehicles, where that operation now often includes eyes up, hands off driving, and even route following and lane changing. On paper, it's easy to become enamored with the idea. You get behind the wheel, drive to a local motorway or freeway, tap a button and let the car take the strain. I'll admit I've done it plenty myself. But in order to safely use that technology, we have to stay alert and supervise our vehicles in the same way we might supervise a teenager learning to drive. And many of us aren't doing that. So today, we're going to run down some do's and don'ts in the age of semi-autonomous wonderment, make sure that you learn to cooperatively drive with your vehicle properly, resulting in a safer, more efficient experience, and avoiding becoming the latest headline who was so clearly not paying attention and let their Tesla Model 3 turn into a side street and accelerate towards a railway crossing for a good 11 seconds before hitting the barrier with little to no perceived intervention from the driver. I want to reiterate something. This video was not meant to be anti-robotaxi or anti-Tesla or anti-Waymo or indeed anti-people using semi-autonomous systems. Do I disagree with the way that Tesla and some other companies market their systems? Yes, I absolutely do. Do I disagree with the flagrant lack of appropriate frameworks in many countries around the world have when it comes to autonomous vehicles? Why, yes. Do I want appropriate legislation designed to regulate not only the technology being developed, but the way it's being used, the people allowed to use it, and an enforcement of some kind of semi-autonomous endorsement for driver's ed before we get to full autonomy? Yes, yes, and yes. Congratulations, you just hit that bingo. But we don't have any of that. And so, in the absence of the people who should be training us to use these systems, we have this video. Although, disclaimer, this is more common sense than anything else, at least I would hope that you would treat it that way. Tips coming in a moment, but first, did you know that we are here because of our amazing community of supporters on Patreon, YouTube, Discord, and Ko-fi? Unlike a lot of channels, we don't take big advertorial sponsorship deals, and we only exist because you support us. There's a link in the down below on how to join, plus links to our channel on the Fediverse, because in addition to being independent, we also think everyone should have free access to information. To our tips. To start, please, for all that is holy, make sure that you understand the basics of the system the vehicle you're in has. Does it only work on divided lane highways? Does it work everywhere? Are there speed limit restrictions in place? Does it only work on mapped roads, or does it work wherever you happen to be, even if that's off-road? And more importantly, how does it communicate all of that with you? I know, that's a lot of questions, and I know that I just threw them at you pretty quickly. But all of that should be covered in your vehicle's owner manual. Remember that video Kate did a few months back entreating you to peruse the Tome of Ownership, the owner's manual? Well, that's why. Automakers are required by law in most countries to include the owner's manual with every new vehicle, and most automakers now have searchable manuals online or in fact in your car's infotainment system. There, you will find the answer on how to identify when you can use the semi-autonomous system, how to engage and disengage it, and learn the warnings, physical and auditory, that occur when there are problems requiring your attention. Your system may offer hands-off functionality, eyes-up functionality, in which case you'll need to keep your eyes on the road and remain attentive long after removing your hands from the wheel. Sometimes it may offer auto lane change with no intervention required from you. And sometimes it might require a minimal input from you to initiate that lane change. Or, it might require you to keep your hands on the wheel at all times. All of these systems exist, and at this point I should note that every vehicle implementation is different. While the underlying technology is pretty similar, and many automakers buy the same sensors from the same Tier 1 part suppliers to underpin their own systems, engagement, disengagement, limitations, and warnings will vary from vehicle to vehicle. For example, GM's latest semi-autonomous system, Super Cruise, can, when activated on an appropriate road, automatically change lanes for you with no intervention from the driver. To signal it's about to change lanes, it will vibrate the corresponding seat cushion edge in the direction it wishes to go. It's important that you know what that feels like and learn how to anticipate it, because believe me, if you are driving along and your left buttock starts to wildly vibrate, and you're not prepared, it can be a learning experience.
Hi there. I just wanted you to know that we're about to turn left. So, don't worry if the seat starts vibrating.
And off the back of that, I'd quietly remind you too, when buying a vehicle with this function for the very first time, or indeed just borrowing or hiring one, that you should take it somewhere reasonably quiet to put it through its paces if you want to use these systems. Try it out in free-flowing, quiet traffic. Figure out what you need to make something happen and what happens if you need to cancel the semi-autonomous procedures. Because believe me, today's semi-autonomous systems do make that kind of mistake that your teenager makes for the first time when they have to accelerate to top speed in a 55 zone. Most of the time the system works fine, but knowing what it does if it panics or makes a mistake is kind of important. Most cars let you wrench control back from the precipice of poor decision-making on a computer's part, let you gently correct the error and carry on, reassuming control when you release the wheel and carry on like nothing happened. But some, like Tesla's EVs for example, the ones with autopilot where you have to keep your hands on the wheel, will actively scream and curse at you in a series of beeps if you forcibly try to correct a directional mistake, and then actively disengage the system entirely, meaning that you have to re-engage it manually before you can let the car take over again. Like I say, these systems, none of them in fact, are fully autonomous. So you need to understand how said system hands over control to you, and when required, take it from you. Look, a quick note here on radio noises. I love me some tunes, and I've been known to blast my fair share of house, tropical house, yes, tropical house, and dance anthems at full blast as I head down the road, especially when I'm having a bad day. But aside from potentially damaging your hearing from the high volume, you should really check that your vehicle's auditory warning system, that is, if you're relying on it to know when you should reassume control or find out there's an issue, is still audible above the latest club banger blasting from your perfectly balanced sound system. Because if it's not, you need to turn down your David Guetta, okay? And while we're talking about knowing how your system works, you should also take it out on a variety of different weather conditions. It's been my experience, for example, that some autonomous systems behave very differently at night time to daytime. And weather can dramatically impact functionality too. Some systems don't care if it's snowing or raining or a bright sunny day, while others have an existential crisis if its rain sensor detects a few little droplets. Next, on the how does your system operate, we get to the how does it change its speed. And some systems will require you to manually increase or decrease the speed using a toggle, usually found on the steering wheel, while more advanced systems may include a camera that spies speed limit changes and then applies them appropriately, sometimes with a user configurable offset. Again, this might not feel like something you should have to know, but it's super important. A lot of unexpected semi-autonomous vehicle behavior happens when a vehicle does something it was programmed to do and the end user, that's you, just didn't expect it to happen. Just like the butt jiggling that comes with GM's system, knowing that your vehicle will suddenly speed up or slow down not only avoids the mild panic when it happens, but it will also prevent you from doing something unnecessary. On the flip side, it helps to know when your car's system is prone to making particular mistakes. Kate Walton-Elliott's car, fitted with Comma AI hardware and running Sunny Pilot, had a habit of trying to follow a non-existent lane at this one specific point of road near her home. My Ford F-150 Lightning, on previous software iterations, had a nasty habit of viewing California's freeway speed limit signs, which have separate speed limits for cars, trucks and trailers, and picking the towing speed limit by default. Now, it is great to see the system err on the side of caution and pick the lowest possible speed limit. But when you're driving along at 70 in the outside lane and the truck suddenly slows to 55, it's not always the best way of staying safe. Luckily, though, that issue does appear to have vanished in the most recent software update, but it's always smart to be vigilant. Unexpected behaviour out of the way, let's talk about knowing how to react if something unexpected happens. Disengaging and regaining control with a tap of the brake pedal usually disengages most systems entirely. You should understand how the driver monitor system works and do not circumvent it. Some systems require hand pressure on the steering wheel, occasional jiggles help let the car know you're still there and alive, while others require your eyeballs. And no, I don't mean your actual eyeballs, I mean they need to see your eyeballs. And this is important because for some people, how you sit and where you are in relation to the steering wheel may influence where you can place your hands. I can't, for example, have my F-150 Lightning operating in Blue Cruise with my hand lazily on top of the wheel at 1 o'clock because that will block the right-hand sensor from seeing my eyes, and thus it will cause the system to moan and ultimately disengage. And unless you like treating the entire vehicle occupants to the warning sign symphony for your entire trip, that's kind of important. Pro tip. If you're unsure where your sensors are, get your smartphone camera and park up somewhere. Then, with your vehicle still on and in park, point your camera around at the dashboard and around the steering wheel. The little infrared LEDs usually used for eye tracking will be visible on camera as rapidly pulsing red lights. I've covered the things you should know about how the system works, what's required from you, how the system engages and disengages, how to take over control when required, and where the system operates or doesn't operate. But now I want to turn to the most important and final part of this. You. Look, I know that some companies are really eager to try and portray their cars as fully capable of driving you from point to point with nary a problem. But the reality is that we're not there. We're nowhere near close to there. We're in the next star system. For now, we are the most important part in the semi-autonomous vehicle control chain. Our meat sacks are essential for a successful operation of any vehicle, and if we're distracted and not paying attention, bad things can and will happen. This means paying attention 100% of the time, being ready to take over, and, as I pointed out earlier, knowing which situations are most challenging for your car. The video I referenced earlier, while I don't have permission to post it here, you can probably look it up for yourself, is an exceptional example of what happens when someone trusts the system too much and lets said system do its thing while they don't pay attention. That collision with a railroad crossing barrier didn't happen because the system was inherently bad. It happened because of an edge case, and an edge case that, it turns out, isn't as rare as you might think it is. The crossing barriers came down at roughly the same height as the Tesla's front-facing cameras, meaning the system couldn't clearly see them, couldn't identify them, and therefore couldn't react to them. And the driver, at least according to the impression created by the in-car dash cam, did nothing to intervene. In fact, NBC News has documented over 40 similar near misses at railroad crossings from Tesla drivers alone. So while the scenario is an edge case, it's clearly not a once-in-a-blue-moon edge case. Semi-autonomous systems right now do actively help reduce accidents caused by human stupidity. They do help reduce your fatigue on long-distance trips by helping eliminate some of the arduous tasks of physically piloting a vehicle for hours at a time. But they do not yet allow you to cede executive function to something or someone else. And just as you wouldn't let your 15-year-old out in your brand new car on the freeway while you snooze in the passenger seat, although while I was writing this script, I had some friends confide that's how their parents taught them to drive, you shouldn't let an otherwise competent-ish system on its own drive you to work. Just don't do it. Because if you do, and something bad happens, you could not only screw up your life, but someone else's too. And if we really want a future of safer roads for everyone, a future where autonomous driving does become the norm and improves road safety, we need to make sure early adoption fools and their abusers of their systems don't spoil it for everyone else. So, until those very busy legislators catch up, I mean, they've got so many things to do, like banning me from peeing. The onus is on us to be better, to drive smarter, with and without whatever semi-autonomous aids we feel comfortable and know how to use. But those aids are just that, aids. Nothing more and nothing less. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Thank you also for watching to the end. If you made it this far, let me know in the comments below what your best and scariest experiences with semi-autonomous driver assistance systems have been. Which system do you use on a daily basis? If you have one, do you trust it? And has it ever done something that made your heart skip a beat? I would genuinely love to know. We are 100% independent, and if you'd like to help us stay that way, there's a link in the down below to support us on Patreon from just $1.50 a month, and you can join the long list of amazing channel supporters right here on either side of me. You can also support us on Ko-fi, grab some swag from our swag store, like this phenomenal t-shirt, and please hit the subscribe button. I'm going to tell you now, YouTube won't reliably tell you when we've pushed a new video, so do also make sure that you followed us on social media or come and hang out with us in our Discord chat room. Thanks for watching, thanks for helping be the positive change that we need to see in the world, and until next time, keep your hands on the steering wheel and your eyes on the road, and as always, keep evolving!